My first stage was a student in Hawaii, and it was very idealistic. So 30, 40 years we'll have global governance, hunger will be solved. It was very much futures as a way to create a different world. Phase 2 of my work was, well, how do you take these great ideals and make them real in an organization? So I worked with the Hawaii justice system for 10 years, and the last 20 years with, I would say, hundreds of organizations. So how do you take the notion of this better future and embed it in institutions where sometimes people hate each other, they're being fired, there's real conflict, and people lose energy. And phase 3 has been really, for me, it's been moving as a metaphor from, I would say, Johnny Appleseed, where you're spreading seeds everywhere and not so worried what will grow, just a Foresight program. And then I moved to, well, let me select 6, 7, 8 clients or people I love to work with and grow those. And now my current phase is an ecology of foresight. So I don't really have to worry per se what grows. I just have to create a framework where there's multiple foresight projects, all doing 1, a better world, 2, looking at alternatives, and 3, making sure people have a narrative that can help create those alternatives. So in that phase, convincing people to change was difficult because it's, well, tomorrow will be like today. Why should I? Now, then in the 90s, we had the end of the Soviet Union, which shocked many people. Then we had the Human Genome Project, which again got people to think about, is genetics, which has been stable for hundreds of thousands of years, it's slow change, right? Suddenly genetics was making a major jump. Then we had the Asian financial crisis, then 9/11, then global financial crisis. So the range of crises has everyone coming to future saying, the world is uncertain, what do I do? So often people say, give me the forecast, tell me what to do. So one could be seduced by that to saying, well, I know the future. The reality is, of course, we have a greater skill set at identifying emerging issues, but we don't know the future per se, right? It's changing, it's complex, there's self-fulfilling prophecies. So the phase of foresight now is the demand is incredibly high. Government after government says the world is changing so quick, we need foresight to help us navigate. Corporation after corporation is saying we need to figure out uncertainty. And even NGOs all over the world. I had a meeting in London last year with 45 international development organizations. The old model of giving aid, they said, is bankrupt. Governments don't want to do that. Peer-to-peer is changing us. Kiva.org, direct lending, is changing us. So the disruptions from technology, from changes in global governance, have made futures, I won't say flavor of the day, because this is 30, 40, 50 years of scholars working on this. It's become current, edgy, and something you have to do. Now your second part is this relevant for Pakistan, right? So the workshops I've done here, the beginning of the workshop is always problem hai, here's our problem. So their goal is to suck you in from possibility to Pakistan's a special case, there's no possibility of a good idea here. The second part is heavy analysis, here's why we have problems. The third part is let's all argue till we hate each other. Now, so that's okay, but my question is, how is that relevant? So the workshop yesterday, people kept on saying, here's the problem, here's the problem. I said, I understand, then get a problem solver. We've learned, don't solve today's problem, create tomorrow's opportunity. For me to work with you to create tomorrow's opportunity, I have to change how you think, not just how you think, the frame of analysis in which you think. I have to change your narrative. So Pakistan traditionally doesn't do that. So this creates an amazing opportunity here to be synthetic, meaning everyone's part of this. Co-creation, meaning you work together, and not problem solving, but opportunity creating. So this to me says a lot can be done here. Now of course there's amazing problems here, but that just says in every problem, what is my opportunity for transformation? And no one is doing transformative or foresight or even forecasting here beyond, I think military is doing gaming. What happens if someone attacks me, I attack them back. But that's very narrow foresight. Banks are doing interest rates, again, quantitative forecasting. But foresight is much deeper, wider, and longer term. So in that sense, Pakistan has an amazing chance for competitive advantage, for a niche, and not just in terms of Pakistan and South Asia, but the Islamic world. to say, okay, what does Islamic foresight look like? We had the Club of Rome with their global modeling. What would, if you took seriously Islamic principles of social justice, of economy, what would an Islamic Club of Rome global quantitative modeling look like? So that's saying use your culture in a way to rethink the future. So it's using culture as a resource, not as a hammer you hit people with. So I would be very positive. So foresight projects here, I mean, I have to say they're sketchy. We can't sugarcoat it. There's not much going on. That doesn't mean there shouldn't be going on. So the hypothesis, will Pakistan in the next 10 years be the same or change? If your hypothesis is not going to change, then don't waste your time doing futures. If your hypothesis it is going to change, then how do we navigate, how do we shape, how do we create that future? That becomes a big issue. And the next part is, who does it? Is it the military? Is it government? Is it NGOs? Is it a mixture of all three? And especially, which generation does it? Do you want to leave the future for people over 80, or should it being done by the youth bulge, the whole generation of young Pakistanis who either can create something new or will sit there and wait for their grandparents to die? I know that sounds rude. But you're thinking, well, do we wait or do we actually do something? As I understand the Foresight Lab, there's a commercial dimension, there's a forecasting dimension, there's a citizen, let's work together dimension, there's collecting indicators of what's going on, a futures index dimension. So I like that it's multiple pathways. It's multiple doors, and you're trying to figure out how, as a decision maker, do you make not just decisions better, which is optimized, but how do you make decisions in novel atmospheres? As novelty steps in, do you have the neural pathways of the brain functioning to actually make decisions in a different environment? That means training, that means workshop, that means scholarship. So the Futures Lab, as I see it, can really have, I think, a decisive influence. So if you look at chaos theory is always asking, not what are the causes of reality, but what are the attractors? See, causation is fantastic, but it just reaffirms what we know. Chaos is find the attractors that reinforce what we can change. So the goal is to make the Foresight Lab, the Futures Lab, what's called a strange attractor.